Do you think Donald Trump is a danger to the world after he said he wants the US to take over Gaza? He actually talked about making it the Riviera of the Middle East. 0207 862 2222 is the number. The president has suggested you level and redevelop Gaza. He has said that's a demolition site, and it is difficult to argue with that. He said the around 2 million Palestinians who call it home should be moved to other countries in the region. He said even the buildings that are standing, if you go back into them, they may collapse on you. Here are some more of his comments, which came during a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs. We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East.
There we are. So Trump's team have since claimed the relocation of Palestinians would be temporary, which actually conflicts with what Mr. Trump himself said. His suggestion has been condemned by Palestinians, of course, by a UN chief, and also by countries like Egypt and Jordan, which he thought Palestinians would be able to go and live in. In the Commons yesterday, Prime Minister Keir Starmer pushed back on Donald Trump's plans.
They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
As well as Gaza, Trump also has his sights on Greenland and the Panama Canal, and he said he wants Canada to become the 51st state. Now, there are different ways of looking at this. It's obviously not going to happen, this Gaza idea, and it may be just there to make us talk about him, James, because he wants to be talked about.
Look,
or is it serious?
I think there are a whole range of things which come into the realm of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is probably going to be on our front pages for every single day of his presidency. That's his strategy. He will do that. He also knows that if you are going to have a conversation, you sometimes have to start at a way where everybody, shrouds, puts their hands up in horror and then brings people to the table so that they can get somewhat and get something done. Because I think what he's demonstrating is somebody or some people have to get together to fund and build and redevelop this area. We have to grapple with this two-pronged situation. So Keir Starmer says two-state solution. Most people think that a two-state solution, creating Palestine in, as recognised countries in two areas, is a great solution. The only problem with that is that Hamas doesn't believe and doesn't agree with the two-state solution, and there are radicalised parts of the Israeli right that doesn't agree with it.
And it can't happen now, can it? Because you cannot have a Palestinian state that won't constantly be worried about being flattened by Israel.
And you can't also have an Israel that thinks that huge amounts of money that might be pumped into it is then put into new tunnels and new munitions.
Yeah. So I think you take him seriously then?
I don't take him seriously in the sense that that's the property developer coming up with a great idea to get people talking. It does get people talking, and I think we do need to think about this and the solution in a different way.
But I mean, there's another way of looking at it, Carolyn, which is that you say it's a great idea. If you're a Palestinian, it's not a great idea. It's actually really offensive.
And also, what he's suggesting isn't possible because the US doesn't own that strip of land. They haven't got the right to go in and do what they want with it. I mean, my heart goes out to his press officer because she's constantly going to have to come out and say, well, that's not really what the president meant. It was going to be temporary. And I think when I first heard it, I thought, how long before we get the press statement saying this is temporary? I mean, I think this was typical Donald Trump. He's verbally exercising his authority. He doesn't need to. He is going to be on the front of every paper for the rest of his tenure. But he wants to make sure that we're all listening. He's a showman.
Yeah.
And this is all about him being a showman. But I do believe that we should have a two-state solution without a shadow of a doubt.
But how do you deal with those Palestinians who don't want that?
Well, that is part of the conversation we need to have. But this ceasefire is so fragile.
It's like saying, how do you deal with Israelis who don't want that?
Yeah,
there will be people who don't want it on both sides.
But we've got to get over, before we can have those conversations, we've got to get this ceasefire. We've got to actually embedded.
Well, okay,
You've got to
hang
get
on,
the
James, hang on,
hostages
hang on.
released.
Okay, I must mention David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, who previously called Trump a tyrant and a neo-Nazi sympathiser, among other things. And he said that while Labour backed a two-state solution, which Carolyn's mentioned, he agreed with part of the president's comments.
Donald Trump is right. Looking at those scenes of Palestinians who have been horrendously displaced over so many months of war, it's clear that Gaza is lying in rubble.
There is pushback within Labour, with 38 MPs demanding in a letter that Starmer take a tougher stand. MP Zara Sultana, who's been suspended from Labour, says this is ethnic cleansing, plain and simple, but will the UK government condemn it? Scottish First Minister John Swinney also likened the plan to ethnic cleansing. On the other side of the coin, Trump ally and Reform leader Nigel Farage had this to say when asked about it.
I love ambition. The thought of a wealthy, wonderful, thriving place with well-paid jobs, casinos, nightlife, I mean, it sounds very appealing to me. I'm not here to answer on behalf of everything the Trump administration has to say. What I will say is he's got off to the most extraordinary start as US president.
Well, Aziz in Southampton can comment on that. He's got off to the most extraordinary start as US president, and this is part of it, Aziz.
Look, this has always been the strategy of Israel to flatten Gaza so it's unlivable. They're now doing it in the West Bank, and the crocodile tears from the Western world. We've armed them to do it. It's our bombs have done it. And we're still arming them, knowing what's happening in the West Bank. And I don't know who's the worst, whether it's Trump or the Western world.
Well, you can see the narrative, right? And you don't need reminding that this didn't start until October the 7th, triggered or you might say gave Netanyahu the excuse to do it. But it's done. And Gaza's in a terrible state. And what happens next, Aziz? What do you want to see happen?
Well, first of all, stop arming this monster to start with, all right? Because they're now doing it to the West Bank. Well, who's going to stop him? Trump, right?
Trump or Netanyahu? Sorry, when you said monster.
Israel.
Israel, OK.
Yes, you've been arming them to the hilt and then saying, oh, dear.
Not arming Israel won't help rebuild Gaza. So how do you get... Trump says Gaza's too dangerous to live in. It's a demolition site. So what do we need to do? What can we do?
Well, first of all, it's the Palestinians to decide whether they want to stay there or not Trump or not anyone else, right? That's the first thing. And and by the way, there's a suggestion that the Arab countries should finance this. Why should they? It's not the Arab bombs who have done this. And,
I hear you. Thank you, Aziz. Tom in Essex, hi.
Hi, morning, Jerry. Look, I've just had a shower and a shave. What Trump's done to me this morning is exactly the same mentally. He's cleaned my thinking. He's given a refreshment, new insight. I love the man. He's getting me really excited. He's not dangerous at all. I think he's really thinking about new ideas in the new world that he wants to change and contribute. I love the idea of it. When I heard the word Riviera in the Middle East, it's wonderful. A holiday resort to get everybody rebuilding. It is a dump. It is a bomb site, which it is.
Yeah, a dump. Well, Carolyn, what do you think of what Tom's saying?
Well, Tom's entitled to his opinion. I think the word Riviera was probably the worst word you could have used to describe what currently is a death zone.
Yeah, well, I always wonder what Riviera means. I mean, from Fawlty Towers, when he says we're the Riviera of
luxury and
yes, sort of like Monaco or
he does, but
casinos and hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, but what Donald Trump is saying is that somebody has to get in and help rebuild. It's going to take a huge amount of money. Now, his phraseology, all the sorts of things, and I know that people are holding their hands up, but when you listen to somebody like Aziz, who seems to think that Israel is the aggressor, let's not forget what happened on October the 7th. Let's also not forget the fact that, and I wanted to hear from Aziz as to to whether he thought that Israel should exist. There are a lot of people who do not
Well,
think
I
that Israel
certainly
should
don't.
exist. There are a lot of people who, we have this wonderful idea that it can be this wonderful peaceful zone, and we, you know, when we talk about and say, oh, we must have a place for Palestine, in fact, what we need to do and what Donald Trump is saying is that everybody in that region is going to have to pitch in here. Now, America's the biggest nation. It's got the biggest pockets. It can probably help and do the most.
I don't think it can. Not after his campaigning, saying, you know, it's America first now.
Yeah.
They don't want to spend a penny. I don't know what this hotel plan is, Trump Tower or something. I don't know, but that's an investment.
It is, but he talks about it in investment terms. But somebody is going to have to help.
Well, he wants-
Yeah, but people have lived there for 70 years. They have a right to say if they want to they want to remain.
Yes,
there.
I agree.
It
Well,
has to be rebuilt for them and not for
Sure, but
some
their government
Middle
is
East-
Hamas, right? So that's who'll take the decision. After the break, we'll take more calls on this. Okay, more calls on Trump. Is he a danger to the world? He said the US should take over Gaza. He says it'll be like a kind of Riviera of the Middle East. And he now says people love it.
Can we ask about your Gaza proposal? A lot of people are talking about, obviously.
Everybody loves it, but this is just not the right time. But we'll maybe do something later this.
So everybody loves it, but it's not the right time. Sonia in London, what do you make of it, this plan?
Well, I am absolutely shocked to hear what he had to say. The man is an ignoramus, dangerous, ignorant fool. And I'll tell you why. Because these people have lived on their land for thousands of years. Yeah? You cannot, it's against international law to ethnically cleanse any land of its people. It's against the law. He sets a terrible example. He destroys everything, human rights and United Nations and ICJ has worked so hard to do.
But doesn't he wants to, you would not have voted for Trump if you were American. He wants he wants to annoy people like yourself, Sonia. That's what he's in business to do.
This is not a game. This is people's lives at stake, Palestinians and Israelis. This is not a game. This is lives at risk. He is a danger.
Why is he a danger, Sonia? Why is he a danger?
Because he's a racist. I feel sorry for the Hispanics. I feel sorry for the gay community. I feel sorry for the trans community. I feel sorry for the Palestinians. Who would be an American with him?
Well, a lot of them voted for him.
I know they did. But because of the lies he told. The man is deranged. I am so sorry.
Have you not got this thing they've now said is called TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, where he's made you unhinged?
He has. And the gentleman there in the panel saying Arabs kicked out the Jews. No, they didn't. I've been to Morocco. There are still lots of Jewish people living there happily.
Hang on. Whoa, Sonia. I didn't say that. What I said...
That might have been Aziz, actually.
It might have been Aziz who said it.
Sorry, well, somebody did.
Well, I didn't. But here's the point.
Sonia, let James respond.
Let me ask
briefly.
Because I understand your disappointment, anger or otherwise at Trump. Having said that, isn't it important for us to have a conversation about how on earth Gaza gets rebuilt?
Who gives you the right to make that decision?
Well, Sonia,
Who gives you the right to make that decision?
But they can't do it on their own.
But they need...
Who told you that?
But Sonia...
They've done it before.
Sonia... Don't they need help? Because part of the issue that we have is that...
Help,
hang on,
but
let me ask you a question.
Help and taking over.
Right. No, I understand that. But then previously, when Gaza has required rebuilding or otherwise, international money was used, and because it wasn't monitored, it ended up in tunnels and munitions. How do we make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well... What you're going to have to do is you're going to have a two-state solution. That's the only way forward.
But how do you deal with
that? Hang on, James, hang on.
If you don't know that, listen, this is going to go on for another 100 years or two.
But Hamas don't know that.
Can we move on? Sorry. Sonia, thank you, bless you. I've got to move on, thank you. You've had a good shout, but we've got a queue. Denise in Berkshire, hi.
Hi. Well, personally, I think he's narcissistic. He opens his mouth. He's not a politician. He opens his mouth and just says what comes out.
You say narcissistic or autistic? I didn't hear.
He's narcissistic.
Artistic?
Narcissist.
Oh, narcissist.
He's narcissistic.
Narcissistic. Okay, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is that already, even just coming up with this, there's going to be more than Hamas. There's going to be all those other terrorist groups that want to fight a fight for whatever reason. They're going to be queuing up because of what he's just said. And at the end of the day, this is Palestinian. As the lady said, they've lived there for thousands of years, alongside Jewish people, alongside a minority of Christians. And the whole problem will be that if he's going to build a Riviera, he's not going to give it up, and he's not going to build it because the Americans won't want to put that much money into it.
Yeah, I don't. It would be.
Palestinians back.
Yeah, I don't know, Carolyn. Realistically, could you have it as a holiday destination?
No, I don't think you could. And it's like I said, he's verbally expressing
Feels like an
his
offensive
power.
question.
And whether we like him or not, what we have to acknowledge is he is the president of one of the richest countries in the world, and we are all dependent on America in some way, and we need to have relations with America, and we can call him everything we like. The man is there, and we cannot do nothing about that until the next election in America. We've got to try to work to get as much success for the next 4 years as possible.
All right. Thank you for your calls on this.